Hi Sunshine Fam! I know it's been a very long time since I have made a video or uploaded one. It's been about a month since I got back from California, and I've been dealing with a lot, but I won't deal with that in this video here. It'll be a separate video where I talk about what I've been doing over the past month. For those of you that are new, my name is Chloe. Welcome to my channel. If you are new and you haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button below. Please comment on my videos, like, share, all that stuff. And I want to start this out by saying, I put descriptions on all my videos, but I don't think anybody reads them. And the other thing is, I don't think a lot of people watch my videos till the very end. So I would really appreciate it if you would watch my videos completely all the way through, because there's certain things that I put towards the end of my videos. Like in one video, I put that if I got 50 likes on a video, then I would upload a very embarrassing video that I made years ago when I was high on Vicodin, and I've only gotten like 3 likes on that video. So I don't think anybody's really watching my videos all the way through, or not a lot of people are. So I'd really appreciate if you could watch my videos all the way through, because there are some things that I put at the end of my videos that might be informative to you. So this is not a presidential highlights video, which I do those as well. This is not the Adventures of Chloe video, but this is going to be a Q&A video. Now, several weeks ago, I put out a request on my Facebook page for people to ask me questions about anything. It could be any subject of things that they would want to know about, and that I would answer in a video. So I only got a couple of responses, which is unfortunate because I don't think anybody really watches my Facebook page either. I have put several things up on my Facebook page of late in the past month, asking people not to put emojis and not to give me words of advice, but just to be a listening ear, to reach out to me, and I got like hardly any responses. So again, that's a different video. So I did get quite a few very deep questions from one of my Sunshine Fam, which is what I call my viewers, or my subscribers, my Sunshine Fam. So if you want to be a part of the Sunshine Fam, make sure you subscribe below and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload a new video. Okay, so let's start out here. So I'm only using first names. So John has 6 questions that he wanted me to answer. One was, how did you maintain your sanity during the Amarillo experience? I find this question very amusing because for about the first month and a half, it went pretty well. I didn't really know my cousin that well. She had actually reached out to me years ago on Facebook. Just out of the blue, I get this message from this person because we have the same last name. And she's like, I think we're related. And I'm like, hi, who are you? That's how she started her conversation with me. And after several years, and she's the one that lives in Amarillo, and she's the one that I stayed with. And so that's a short story about that. So how did I maintain my sanity during the Amarillo experience? Well, I did some cross-stitching, which I do cross-stitching down there, or as a hobby, actually. So I did some cross-stitching. I got to play with Pookie a lot. I never did hear if they got the dog back. I have not been in touch with my cousin, Elizabeth Christine, for quite some time. That is not her real name, but that's how she wanted to be known on her YouTube channel, which I don't think she ever started because I've looked it up and I don't see it. But anyway, I digress. The other thing is, I would try to go out and do door dashing. For the first month, it went really well because when I moved there from here, I was considered a top dasher, which meant that if there were 2 dashers in the same area, the top dasher would get the order before the person that's just out there dashing that's not a top dasher. I don't know how it would work if there were 2 top dashers in the same area. If 2 orders came in at the same time, maybe they would give the orders to those people. I don't know how that part worked about the top dasher, but I was able to get several orders at first, but then I realized that I wasn't getting as many orders, so I didn't make Top Dasher, because I moved down in September of 2021 to Amarillo, and then when I got to October, I hadn't made the 100 orders from September, and so I didn't really do my research well when I moved to Amarillo, and I really wish I had, otherwise I would have done it. But when I found out that the minimum wage down there was $7.25 at that time, I don't know if it's still that way, then I realized why I wasn't getting very many orders for DoorDash, because nobody could afford it. And so I would go out and I would sit in the parking lot of the grocery store and wait for orders and wait, and hardly any orders were coming in, and I wasn't really making much money. And so my cousin works for Walmart, and so she wanted me to work for Walmart as well, and they were only paying $12 an hour. Well, that would have been a pay cut from what I was making at the grocery store up here. And so even though it would have been some money, it wasn't much. And so that's when my sanity started going downhill. So I'm slowly getting to the answer to your question, John. And then my cousin would talk a lot about her ex-husbands, mainly the one that she had left 13 years prior, and how abusive he was. She hadn't seen him in 13 years. She hadn't really been in contact with him in 13 years. But she carried all of that weight, I guess, on her shoulders, and I became her Dr. Phil. So when she would come home, during the day it wasn't so bad because I had the house to myself. Her and her son would go out and work. They'd always start early in the morning, and then they'd come home late, like mid to late afternoon from their jobs. And Jeremy wasn't really so much of a problem because he would just come home and watch TV. And Elizabeth Christine would come in my room and complain about the people that she worked with and complain about her old apartment that she had been in, which I know I went into that detail when I made my first video down in Amarillo about the bugs, about the cockroaches and all that, the German cockroaches. They were disgusting. The spiders under her bed, spider sacks under her bed. I don't know how she lived like that, to be honest with you. But I was trying to move on with my life, and she was unloading all of her stuff on me. And there was one time that I actually talked to her sister about it, who would have been another cousin of mine that I didn't really know that side of the family because I had never met them. And I asked her sister if she could give me any advice on how to handle Elizabeth's issues. And she's like, oh, I've tried for years. And she basically was not much help. And so she's like, well, I've tried and, there's just no getting past it. And I'm like, well, gee, thanks. So that's when I started looking for an out. And instead of moving further west, I ended up coming back north. At the end of December, I don't know what I was thinking. As you all know, I suffer from SAD. But it got me out of there. And so after 4 months, which felt more like 4 years, I left, and it wasn't until after I got home home, Minnesota, that it freaked me out that I made that trip, that drive, all by myself. It didn't scare me so much on the drive because I was so focused on getting to my next location. Because I broke my trip up into 3 days. And so I didn't start thinking about my trip back until after I got back, and then I freaked out. And I'm like, why am I freaking out after the fact? That didn't make any sense to me. But in any case, my sanity was, like I said, it was good for the first month and a half. And at one point, I found a church down there that I enjoyed going to called the Church at Quail Creek. Shout out to them. And it was a non-denominational church. And I reached out to the pastor there, and he set me up with a leader that was a counselor. And so I met with this counselor a couple times And he kind of helped me get through that. So hopefully that answers your question, John. I know that was a long-winded answer. Next question. What made you decide to do YouTube? That's a very interesting question too. I follow some YouTubers. One of them is named Omar Gosh, and he is friends with a guy that I used to follow that I don't follow so much anymore because he fakes his videos. And I don't believe in doing that just to get views. These people get, people like that get rich off of people like you and me that watch them, and then we buy their merchandise, we watch their videos, and that's how they're making their money. By the way, I don't make any money on YouTube. You have to have quite a few more followers. You have to have a lot of watch hours, a lot of shares. That's why I keep asking people watch and comment and stuff like that. Grows your channel. Which, incidentally, I'm almost at 300 viewers. Thank you so much. 300 subscribers. But anyway, Omar and this other guy, his name is Mo Sargi. It was a few years ago, and they were doing like a live stream. And Omar actually gave out his phone number and had his followers, or his subscribers, his fams, call him. And one of the girls, or one of the people, was saying they were trying to start a YouTube channel, but they weren't getting very far in it. They thought that they would get more famous quicker. And one of the things that Omar had said that kind of sparked my interest in YouTube is don't do it for the fame and the fortune, because it won't happen overnight. It very rarely does it happen overnight. It can take years for people to reach a threshold where you're actually starting to make good money on YouTube, where you can make that your job. Like I said, I'm not making a penny off of YouTube. I'm just doing it for fun. I'm not doing it for the fame and the fortune. And watching their videos, I follow a lot of different YouTubers. I follow CJ Faison and Chelsea Luna, C's Crazy Crossroads, and Joe. I used to follow Urban Ghost Urban Explorations, but since Joe and Rob kind of broke apart, and Joe is now living in the same state as Chris from C's Crazy Crossroads, I kind of fell out of watching YouTube videos for a while. I watched Trilogy Media once in a great while, but not so much anymore. But I started watching all these YouTubers and thinking, that'd be kind of fun to do. And so that's kind of how I got involved in it, was through Omar Gosh, which, Omar, hey, if you're watching, thanks for giving me the inspiration to do that. So that's how I got interested in YouTube. It did take me a while to get used to being out in public and talking to a camera. Like, I was very uncomfortable out in California when I was in the crowds of people, like at, not so much at Lake Poway, because there wasn't that many people out there, but like at Seaport Village and Old Town. I felt kind of strange. I kind of went back into when I first started making videos for YouTube after the Irish dance videos, which, if you please go down and look at some of my very older videos. I've been doing this for 8 years, so please watch some of my older stuff too that you probably haven't seen yet. Don't just watch the new stuff. I did get a little self-conscious that I'm just sitting here talking to a camera. It does take some getting used to if you're not an extrovert. I'm more of an introvert. So if you're interested in doing YouTube, you have to be comfortable being out in crowds if that's what you choose to do for your channel. And talking to a camera with people staring at you like, what are they doing? But, YouTube has gotten so popular that people think, oh, she's talking to a camera. She or he must be a YouTuber. And so they just kind of look at you for a second and then they go on their merry way or whatever. So it does take some getting used to coming out of your shell and talking to a camera, hoping that you'll get views. So that's how I decided to do YouTube, was through Omar Gosh. From your experience, what do you think the keys are to a good relationship or marriage? I'm probably not the right one to ask that question to, John. I'm looking back at 2 ex-husbands, and I'm not looking for number 3. Even though I have a ring on my finger, I am not engaged, I am not married. I am very single. The keys to a good relationship, or marriage, I guess: honesty, communication, openness, companionship, not being selfish, not putting the focus all on yourself, doing for your partner, putting your partner's needs above your own. Definitely a plus in that one. But my parents got married in 1959. And yes, they are still together. And I keep thinking that the camera lens keeps going back. And they're still married after 60 some years. And every relationship has its ups and downs. And you have to be willing to compromise. Don't sell out to your partner. This is a big one because this is kind of what I'm dealing with right now with somebody that I was considering getting back together with. But then I realized that I'm putting more into the relationship than he is. And I tend to contact him more than he even responds to me. And that doesn't make for a good relationship either. When one person is carrying more of the weight of the relationship than the other, it's not really a good relationship. Now, I know that they say that, especially in a marriage or even in a relationship, it should be 50-50. No. It should be 100-100. You should each be giving 100% into the relationship. If it's a long-distance relationship, those are a lot harder to keep going because you don't see the person. You're not physically with the person. Hopefully somebody who's watching this will understand this. Don't be with a person just because you're lonely and you want somebody in your life. That's what I'm dealing with right now. Yes, being alone can be beneficial. You don't have somebody telling you what to do with your life all the time, telling you to pick up your clothes or put down the toilet seat or do the dishes or clean this or clean that, whatever. But on the other hand, when you go to bed and you wake up and you're in your bed alone, that does kind of suck. When you don't have somebody there that you can come home to and just be with and cuddle with. And, you know, relationships aren't always about intimacy as far as beds go. It's about being there for the other person. Put the other person's needs ahead of your own. But don't monopolize the relationship either. So hopefully that answers your question on that. What are the keys to having a good relationship with your children since your kids appear to be close to you? Well, actually, one of my kids is not exactly very close to me. I hardly ever hear from my children at all. And the thing that comes to mind is the song Cats in the Cradle. As you get older, your kids grow up. They're still your kids, even though they're adults. You never, ever, ever stop being a parent. And I hopefully one person is out there watching this that I've tried to push this point through to you. It doesn't mean that you continue to treat your kids as little kids. You know, you never, ever stop being a parent, even if they're an adult. You know, there's a scene in the movie Parenthood that starred, oh gosh, it had a whole slew of people in it, but Steve Martin was one of them. I really need to get a camera that will record longer than 19 minutes. So what I was talking about was Parenthood, and the movie Parenthood with Steve Martin, and there's a scene in it where he was talking to his father. His character was talking to the father, and I think the father was played by Jason Robards, and the father is talking about being a parent, and he says, you never cross the finish line or the end goal, the end zone, and spike the ball and do your touchdown dance. It never ever ends, meaning parenting. You never ever stop being a parent. It doesn't matter how old your kids are. It doesn't stop when they turn 18. It doesn't stop when they're 30. It doesn't stop when they're 40 or 60, whatever. You always are a parent to your children. Now, that doesn't mean that you treat your children like little kids. but you're always there for them if they need you. And in the same respect, to my 3 kids, you need to be there for your parents as well, especially the older they get, just the way that I'm there for my parents right now. And so I know that children grow up and they have their own lives, and they have their own friends, they have their own activities, their own interests and stuff, and they don't always match the parents. But you should always check in on your parents at least once a week. And this goes to Clary, Silver Star, and Sea Dog. Got that? So hopefully that answers your question. I know I said a lot more when I was rambling on and on about that, but my kids, they may appear to be close to me, but they have their own lives, and it's very rare that I even hear from them or see them at all, especially Clary. But that's another whole issue in and of itself, which I won't get into here. Okay, so let's go on. How have your divorces shaped you as a person? Well, let me give you a little background. So the reason I got married the first time, I was very young. I was only 19. And the reason I married my first ex-husband, which are my children's father, was to escape the abuse I had been suffering at home. I will get into that in the other video as well. Not quite ready to open up completely about that, although I have touched on the fact that I have been abused in many ways from the time that I was 7. But I wouldn't really consider that much of a marriage, because I got married to him to run away from a very bad situation I was in, and so it was kind of a loveless marriage to begin with. I can't really say for a fact, and I know this is probably hard for a lot of people to hear, but I don't think I was ever really in love with my first, now ex-husband. I tolerated him, I guess, and yes, I did give him 4 children, but I never really was in love with him. He kind of had his own. This kind of goes back into your second question, John, the third question about what is the key to a good relationship and marriage. He was very into model trains. He was very into woodworking, and he had to have the top of the line stuff, so he had a lot of Snap-on tools. And for those of you that don't know much about tools and brand names of tools, Snap-on is probably the top of the line. So we were in debt for the majority of our marriage. Not a good place to be. And so, how did it shape me, the first one? Well, I became a doormat. I didn't actually become the strong person that I am today until after I was having troubles with my second marriage, and I had to go to counseling. And that counselor, out of all the counselors that I'd ever seen in my life, that counselor was the one that really helped me go from passive-aggressive to assertive. And even though I am still somewhat passive-aggressive, I'm not as passive-aggressive anymore. It takes a lot to push me to the aggressive side, but she really helped me get out of being a doormat for everybody. The second marriage, I had gotten divorced the first time in 97. I had gotten engaged to the second guy. I didn't even know the second guy when I got divorced the first time. I got engaged in 98. And then we didn't get married until 2001. And all of his friends were warning me, don't marry him. He's too much of a mama's boy. He'll never leave his mother. It'll be a hard marriage for you, all this stuff. And these are people that grew up with him, and I didn't listen to him. I thought, okay, well, I've got to be different because he asked me to marry him, and so maybe I can convince him to leave his mom. Because one of my mottos when I was, or my mantras when I was married to him was, that is why a man leaves his mother and his father and clings to his wife. And sadly, in that relationship, I was the other woman. He spent more time with his mom, trying to get her approval. She did everything for him, literally everything. She washed his clothes. She made his bed, and he was in his 30s when I met him. She made his meal. She cleaned up afterwards, cleaned his room. I mean, she did everything but give him a bath, you know, pretty much. And she said, well, he does all the hard work around the house, and he does the handyman stuff that I can't do. And it was more like he was married to her than he was to me. And so, to kind of answer your question, I can't really use the word divorces in this one, John. How did my second divorce shape me as a person? We'll say it that way. I spent years after my divorce from my second ex-husband in 2008 reevaluating my own life. I looked at every relationship I had ever had. Romantic relationship I'd ever had. And it does take two to make or break a relationship. And so I took inventory on what I did to break everything up. And it wasn't, I spent years doing that to reestablish myself. And that's probably why I'm so comfortable being alone, because I've gotten used to being alone. I prefer it that way, as I said in the third question. But how can I word this? It wasn't until 2013 when I started dating again. And so I took 5 years to just live life the way I wanted to live it, to a degree. And not being in a relationship with anybody, a romantic relationship with anybody. I looked at myself and thought, what did I do to break this relationship up? What did I do to break that relationship up? Why did this one not work? What did I do? And yes, a lot of blame to my exes, ex-husbands anyway, was put on them, because both of them were very abusive to me. Both of them were very verbally abusive to me, emotionally abusive. The second one was physically abusive when he sprained my wrist, which is a true story. Get into that in another video if you'd like me to, but yeah, if you kind of going back to that third question, or the fourth question, what are the keys to having, or no, third question about good relationship. Don't ever be in a relationship if it's going to be abusive in any way, shape, or form. Get out of that relationship if you can. Don't be in a controlling relationship, and don't control the relationship. So yeah, I did a lot of inventory on myself after my second marriage broke apart, and I pretty much danced out of both of my divorces. I felt very free. I told one of my friends when my second ex-husband kicked me out of his mother's house, I was scared because I didn't know how I was going to support myself and my kids at the time, because at that time I had my kids back with me. But I told her, I said, you know, I have felt all this time like a caged tiger, and he just opened up the door and I'm free. But now what? So, so yeah, that's how it shaped me as a person. I just did inventory on myself and realized I don't need to have somebody in my life. I was tired of being in a codependent relationship where I was the one that was dependent on somebody else making me happy. That's not the way to be in a relationship either. So, anyway, moving on. You come from a two-parent household with so many single parents raising children. These are also from John. What were the benefits from your upbringing having two parents in the household? These are very deep questions, John. Let me check my camera here and make sure. Well, the battery light's not flashing and I'm at 11 minutes, so I'm going to try and make this one quick. This is obviously going to be an edited video because my battery is going to die, I'm sure, before I'm done with this. Do have a second battery, thank goodness. A two-parent household. Well, you have to remember I'm in my mid-50s. And so back when I was growing up, the father worked outside the home and the mother was a housewife. So my mom always was at home with us. So I have a better relationship with my mom than I do with my father. Because my father worked very long hours. He worked in an asphalt paving company that my grandfather started. My father started out building the roads here in Minnesota, and then after my grandfather got sick and passed away, then my father and my uncles on my mom's side ran the business. So my dad was then a businessman. These are things you guys don't know about me because I don't really talk about my family. But being in a two-parent household, it's hard for me to answer that question because of the abuse I was dealing with growing up. And John, you know what I'm talking about. The benefits, I never went without. My dad made very good money. And I grew up in what you would today call an upper middle class family. But that was normal to me. We lived in a suburb, a very nice suburb. And so we always had a roof over our heads. We always had food on the table. We always had clothes on our back. We had toys. We had everything we needed. The only thing I feel I didn't get, especially from my father, was parental love. My mom, I can't say that about because I love my mom. Not to say I don't love my dad, but it's a different kind of relationship I have with him. That's a hard one to answer, John. Because my mom once asked me in recent years, name 5 positive things that I remember growing up. I could barely come up with 3 because I had such a traumatic childhood. I mean, yeah, we went on vacations, mostly to Florida, different parts of Florida, which you think, why would I go to Florida? To me, that was kind of a boring state. But we never really went without. My mom taught us a lot. But like I said, I didn't really have a decent relationship with my father. He would try to teach me about cars. I didn't care. I was a girl. I just, like, here's a little story. I was very into music because I grew up in a very musical family. And so music has always been a big portion of my life. And when I would be in my room just playing with my dolls and listening to music, whatever, I wasn't getting into any trouble. My dad would come in when there was a game on, whether it be the Vikings, the Twins, whatever, and say, "You're coming out and watching the game with us." I didn't care about sports, but I was kind of forced to do things that I didn't want to do. And that was just my dad. My dad grew up on a farm. And honest to God, I don't know how he and his siblings were even born, because I never saw a lot of love between his parents, my grandparents. My paternal grandmother was very ornery, That was a big word back then. She rarely smiled. She was hardworking. The minute she got up, she was always cooking. They lived on a farm. And so my father learned work ethics at a very young age. You know, you grew up on a farm and you get up at the crack of dawn and you milk the cows and you take care of the animals and you take care of the yard and the fields and stuff like that. And that was back in the 30s and 40s. And so he grew up in a very rough family, I guess you would say. My mother, on the other hand, her parents were always very kind, I never ever remember my maternal grandparents ever raising a voice to each other. They were stoic, very loving, very kind, and my mom kind of had to teach that to my dad. So, talk about polar opposites when it came to my parents. So we kind of learned that divorce wasn't really an option because both of my parents were Catholic, and so that just was never heard of. So the benefits, yeah, I think I kind of answered that. We never went without. My dad was very hardworking, so I learned a lot of my my work ethics from him. And even though I never became that domestic, except when it comes to chicken. Sea Dog and Silver Star, stop laughing. You know what I'm talking about. You know, I learned to work hard for what you want. Don't expect the world to hand things to you. So that's kind of how I learned things. You know, you stay together. Except in my case where I went into 2 very abusive relationships. Which is why I'm divorced twice. Okay, so Alan, going on from there, lightening the mood a little bit. Okay, well I didn't miss too much here. Okay, had to change the battery. Okay, so Alan is asking, and this is a very interesting question from him. What are the top 10 worst chemicals found in the foods in the U.S. but aren't allowed in foods across the world? And what foods are they found in? Well, Alan, I did some research online, and from a website called Better Health Market, they list 10. I listed 10 of them, and not necessarily in this order, but these are the chemicals, which I wouldn't even consider these chemicals, but so they are palm oil, shortening, white flour, rice, pasta, and bread, high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweeteners, sodium benzoate and potassium benzoate. I don't even know if I want to try to pronounce this word. Butylated hydroxynosole, or BHA, sodium nitrates and nitrates. Now these are food colorings. There goes my bird clock. It's 7 o'clock. Blue 1 and 2, green 3, red 3, and yellow 6, and MSG. So those are the chemicals. Now, according to the website timesofindia.com, there are 10 foods that they consider to have these chemicals in it, I guess. And they are flavored yogurt, tomato sauce, salad dressing, they didn't specify which kind, peanut butter, bad news for people who love Reese's, pickles, Silver Star, or Silver Mist, I think I'd call you. I keep saying Silver Star. Processed meat, soups, didn't specify which kind, popcorn, which I found interesting, protein bars, you wouldn't think that those would be bad for you, and canned food. And I only found 4 on this website called levelshealth.com. Potassium bromate and azod, oh my god, I don't even know how to pronounce this. I'm just going to call it ADA. Because this word has like all 25 letters in it. Brominated vegetable oil, or BVO, titanium dioxide, yellow 5 and 6, and red 40. So again, with food coloring, yellow and red, not good for you. Okay, so that answers your question. Hopefully it did answer your question. Okay, so today, I only got 2 people asking me questions, but today I asked Sea Dog and Silver Mist or Silver Star if they had any questions for me. So Silver Star said she couldn't think of any because she was really tired, so that was the only thing on her mind today. But Sea Dog asked a very interesting question. How do worms reproduce? Well, I'm not going to get into the whole sexual relationship between worms, but if I go ahead and look up... Actually, let me answer your second question first, Sea Dog, because then I already have that on here. His second question, I'll come back to the worms question in a second. How does the ozone layer work? Okay, so I looked this one up, and according to the EPA.gov website, the ozone layer is the stratosphere, absorbs a portion of the radiation from the sun, preventing it from reaching the planet's surface. Most importantly, it absorbs the portion of UV light called UVB. UVB is a kind of ultraviolet light from the sun and sun lamps that has several harmful effects. Now, I can get deeper into this, so give me just a second. Okay, so basic ozone layer science. And again, this is from the EPA.gov website. The Earth's ozone layer protects all life from the sun's harmful radiation, but human activities have damaged this shield. Less ozone layer protection from ultraviolet light will, over time, damage crops and lead to higher skin cancer and cataract rates. I won't go too deep into this, but the ozone layer, the Earth's atmosphere, is composed of several layers. The lowest layer, the troposphere, extends from the Earth's surface up to about 6 miles or 10 kilometers in altitude. Virtually all human activities occur in the troposphere. Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on the planet, is only about 5.6 miles, 9 kilometers high. The next layer, the stratosphere, continues from 6 miles, 10 kilometers, to about 31 miles, 50 kilometers. Most commercial airplanes fly in the lower part of the stratosphere. Most atmospheric ozone is concentrated in a layer in the stratosphere, about 9 to 18 miles, or 15 to 30 kilometers above the Earth's surface. Ozone is a molecule that contains the 3 oxygen atoms. At any given time, ozone molecules are constantly formed and destroyed in the stratosphere. The total amount has remained relatively stable during the decades that it has been measured. The ozone layer in the stratosphere absorbs a portion of the radiation from the sun, preventing it from reaching the planet's surface. Most importantly, it absorbs the portion of the UV light called UVB. UVB has been linked to many harmful effects, including skin cancers, cataracts, and harm to some crops and marine life. Scientists have established records spanning several decades that detail normal ozone levels during natural cycles. Ozone concentrations in the atmosphere vary naturally with sunspots, seasons, and latitude. These processes are well understood and predictable. Each natural reduction in ozone levels has been followed by a recovery. Beginning in the 1970s, however, scientific evidence showed that the ozone shield was being depleted well beyond natural processes. So I'm not going to get any deeper into that. So let's go into the worm question, shall we? How do worms reproduce? Okay, well, like I said, I'm not getting into the whole... where did I find that information? Okay, here we go. I'm not getting into the whole how do worms have sex to have babies situation, but according to brotherswormfarm.com, the red wiggler, which I guess we call earthworms. What the heck was that noise? I hear all kinds of weird noises in my apartment. And compost worms are prolific breeders, and under the right conditions can double their population size every 3 to 4 months through mating. This means that over the course of a single year, 1,000 earthworms, around 1 pound, can reproduce to a size of 12,000 to 16,000 worms. Okay, so the short answer, how do worms reproduce? It takes two to tango. Most worm species, like red wigglers and European nightcrawlers, require a partner to breed and reproduce. Okay, so this is all I'm going to get into as far as the sex part of it. Earthworms start the reproduction process by laying upside down next to one another and joining their head areas in a tight embrace. Each worm secretes sperm into tiny storage sacs of their partner. The worms then untangled and self-secrete a fluid that hardens and becomes the cocoon. This cocoon rolls off the worm's head, and fertilization occurs when it passes over the ovaries and sperm storage sacs. From these cocoons, tiny worms will hatch anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks or longer based on conditions. So if we go down a little bit further, they do break it down a little bit here. Okay, so how fast do worms reproduce? Red wigglers and the European nightcrawlers and other earthworm species reproduce very quickly. The entire reproduction process from mating to cocoon hatching is 3 to 4 weeks and can be as fast as 10 to 12 days. Day 1, worms mate and begin the reproduction process. Days 3 to 6, cocoons are fertilized and roll off of the worm's head. Day 10 to 20, cocoons hatch. Day 70 to 100, baby worms reach sexual maturity and begin the breeding process on their own. Okay, so Sea Dog, there's your answer. Never thought I'd be asked that question. So, they don't just come out of the earth and die, okay, when it rains, like he said. So, why am I doing this video in my bedroom? Because this is where I spend most of my time, to be honest with you. I am pretty much a recluse. So for those of you who really want to know about my life, I'll give you a little hint into what my life is like these days. I get up, I go to work, 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day. And when I'm not at work, I come home and I relax and I listen to peace and quiet. I put on some music. I watch Dr. Phil. I watch different shows, whatever. I like Say Yes to the Dress. That's kind of an interesting show. Check it out. And I play a lot of Happy Color, which is a color by number game, if you will, on my phone. They give you pictures, and it kind of works sort of like Cross Stitch World used to work, where it would give you the color palette, and then it would tell you where to put the color, and you just click on the color. Sort of like that. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of show you what it looks like here. Oh, I just disappeared it. Okay, so give me just a second. So I don't really go out much. Even in California, I would stay in the hotel a lot longer than I really wanted to. Longer than I should have. Escaping this past winter, you'd think that I would have wanted to be out at the crack of dawn and go down to the beach or just go out and enjoy the beautiful weather that they had out there. But over the past month, I've been dealing with a lot. Not in a good way, unfortunately. A lot of people don't know what transpired after I got home. But that's for another video. But since I got back, kind of sucks that on the days that I'm off, it seems to be cloudy and rainy. I do intend to do door dashing again, but then it gets cloudy and rainy and I don't feel like going out anywhere. Usually my SAD kicks in at wintertime, but for some reason it's kicked in since I came back from San Diego, which really sucks. But yeah, most of my time is spent at work, to be honest with you. And so when I come home, I get in my pajamas very early at night, and I sit in bed and play Happy Color, and sometimes take a nap, and then wake up and play more Happy Color, and then go to bed for the night. So that's kind of my life. I don't eat much either, which is, if you've noticed, if you go back a year or even two or year or two, you will notice that I've lost a lot of weight in the past year or two from my previous videos. If you go back and look at some of them, I look very, very obese. Still not at my ideal weight that I really want to be at, but so let me kind of go in here and show you kind of what this looks like. Okay, continue. So I started working on one of these pictures, and of course they've got ads and stuff too. So basically what this looks like is like this. So you've got the color on the bottom, and then you can expand the picture like that, and then you click on the color, and let me see if I can get to one where it'll color in where it's supposed to go. Let me go up further here to where these numbers are actually at. Sorry, hang on. Okay, so if I click on 76, then you'll see that the number 76 is kind of checkered in, and that's where I would put that color. So you just tap on it. So that's kind of how Happy Color works. Kind of very not unlike Cross Stitch World, where you'd click on the color and then it would tell you where to put where to put those colors on the picture. Haven't been able to get into Cross Stitch World in quite some time. I think they took it away. So I haven't played Cross Stitch World in many, many years. But so Clary got me interested in this game, and I've been playing it for a long time, and I've colored thousands and thousands of pictures. So as far as people that I am friends with, I really don't know anybody in my building because I kind of keep to myself. I'm pretty much a recluse. I have friends that I have from the grocery store that I used to work at. Some of them, well, one of them has been in my video, one of my videos, the one from Como Zoo, and that was Nancy. But I really don't have a lot of friends because I think, you know, in some instances, I don't think that I was to blame for this one person wanting nothing to do with me anymore. I think it just was an unfortunate thing where I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I may have said the wrong thing, and she just exploded all over me. So I miss her, but I've moved on with my life from her. So because of that, I have a lot of trust issues because of my second ex-husband. That's another thing. You've got to have trust in a relationship as well. And going a little bit deeper into that, still answering that question number 3 from you, John. I feel, okay. I feel in a relationship, no matter what kind of relationship it is, although mostly romantic relationships, if you are finding that you and your partner are compatible with each other, and you guys can make each other laugh and cry and be there for one another, give each other space when you need to, if you are comfortable enough with that person, you shouldn't need to look anywhere else. And I think that people that cheat, myself included, are not getting what they need at home, and so they look elsewhere. And that can break up a lot of relationships. And I think in today's world, I think kids get married way too quick. They just love the idea of being with somebody, and they feel, okay, well, when I'm done with this person, I'll just dump them and move on to somebody else. And that's why the divorce rate is so high, because kids are getting married so young, and they're getting pregnant so young, and then they can't afford to take care of their own kids because they're still kids themselves, and they can't even, some of them aren't even old enough to work. So then their parents, the grandparents of the baby, end up having to take care of the kids, the grandkids, whatever. So just for relationships, just be there for one another, you know. And if you don't think things are working out, I mean, the honeymoon isn't going to last forever, okay? You're going to have your bad days. You're going to have your days where you go to bed angry. But talk it out. Communication is the number one thing. Also, don't expect, this is not the 1950s anymore, so don't expect one spouse to be the breadwinner. In today's world, you need both spouses to work, especially if you're raising children, young children. I'm saying this to one person in particular, which she'll probably not watch this video, but both parents have to work. And if that means you work opposite shifts and you don't see each other a lot, then that's what you got to do. You know, as far as that question about, you know, having a good relationship with your kids, you put your kids' needs ahead of your own. Don't let the TV be the babysitter. Teach your children what they need to know. Don't expect somebody else to do it. Okay, I am recording. I don't know. My camera keeps turning off. I don't know why. I don't know where I left off. I'm not going to look it up. But at this point, I'm going to do my outro. So thank you for joining me today. Please leave your comments below. Please hit that like button. Go back and watch the video that I made. I think it was the one called Chloe Needs to Move. And watch it all the way to the end, because I need the likes on that video to be much higher than they are. If you want to see an embarrassing video that includes me, please hit that like button on that video, okay? Not this video, that video. But hit the like button on this video. Comment on all my videos, please. I want more than just John commenting on my videos. So I need to know that my almost 300 subscribers are watching me and commenting, please. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I think they're coming for me now. I got the window open. So at this point, I'm going to say thanks for joining me today. We'll see you on the next one. Have a sunny day.